Welcome into the Trevor Staub Show, episode number 54. Today we've got a great guest. We have the founder of Dynamic Disc, Jeremy Rusco. Jeremy Rusco recently was a part of the selling of Dynamic Disc to House of Disc, a very big venture capitalist funded movement right now that is kind of taking over the disc golf scene at the moment. So I had a chance to talk to Jeremy about that acquisition and just kind of get a little bit of insight into the history of Dynamic and his involvement, because it's a really cool story. So I think you're really going to enjoy this. Let's hop right into it. All right, we welcome onto the show a very special guest today. Today we have the founder and CEO of Dynamic Discs, Jeremy Rusco. Thank you so much for joining the show, Jeremy.
Hey, Trevor. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into the latest news with Dynamic, obviously we're going to talk about the recent acquisition. I want to start at the beginning to kind of give the listeners some perspective just to where this company came from and your involvement in the beginning of this company, just to kind of set the scene a little bit. So take us back to your college days where this whole thing started. What was the original vision for this business?
Well, I just got Dynamic Disc started as a college eBay hobby. Ultimately, that came from my passion for disc golf. I got really competitive with my roommates, with my teammates on the football and track team, and ultimately decided to turn that passion into buying 100 discs from Discraft and putting them up on eBay and selling a disc the first week and a disc the second week, and slowly started to see that was going to become a little bit more than that, but didn't have any ambitions for it to be anything other than my college hobby. But ultimately, things kept growing, things kept selling. I could definitely see that there was something there with disc golf. And after I graduated, decided to do substitute teaching, but keep the eBay passion alive with Dynamic Discs. And fast forward today, 18 years later, and things have certainly changed a whole lot from then. So exciting times in disc golf for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, so many kind of just sparks back then in the disc golf world, just getting things going. We're able to really turn into just, huge businesses now, just with the way the sport has worked. Now, I read that when you were doing the college eBay business, you were doing disc dies a lot back then. What kind of designs and things were you dyeing on discs to sell?
Well, nothing complex because it was a vinyl cutter, and your RIT powder dye, and
Yeah.
so nothing too complex. A two-color dye back then for me was pretty complex, I guess you could say. But it certainly evolved to more than that. And one of the early key friendships, partnerships, sponsorships, Eric McCabe was in Emporia as well, and getting to know him, and ultimately him being the first guy to be sponsored by Dynamic Disc, wearing the Dynamic Disc logo, was something that really helped get me even more involved with seeing where Dynamic Disc could grow.
Yeah, and I know that disc dyeing, especially back in the day, like nowadays it's evolved to like this whole new thing, and there's even the dye max technology that Dynamic offers. But my roommate and I, when we played college disc golf, we used to try and dye discs out of our dorm room, and it was always like the fear that if the dye got anywhere, like we were toast. And one night we spilled it all over the place. Like, were you running a dye operation out of your dorm room?
It was out of the basement, and once we went from basement to basement, and we definitely ruined some walls.
Yeah.
But then we really had a robust dye operation once we got kicked out of my house. My wife, she finally had enough, and I think it was 2008, said, "Hey, you gotta get out of here." And just the business was growing enough with enough people wanting to come by, a couple employees that we needed to expand, and actually set up. We had 60 dye stations set up in
Wow.
one room alone, and a dye station being a upside down ultimate disc,
Right.
and two microwaves to warm the Brit dye up. But could certainly be a messy process, and even with the fast forward to today with the Dymax, process and operation that we got. There's some things can still be a little messy even today.
Yeah, it's certainly disc dyeing is it's a messy business. So the name Dynamic Discs, where did that come from? And was it always called that, or were there some early iterations of the eBay business that had a different name?
Yeah, good question. So for whatever, I really didn't know a whole lot about disc golf when I decided, you know what, I'm going to try to start up an eBay business, and I didn't know what the name was going to be, and I, for whatever reason, wanted something that was D discs.
Mm.
And I asked my family and asked my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife today, to make some suggestions. And my girlfriend came up with dynamic discs, and I was like, that actually sounds kind of cool, kind of good. And
Yeah.
so I did my little internet search, and there was not anything associated with dynamicdisc.com. Dynamicdisc.com was available on GoDaddy. Um, I did a little, internet search, and what I had found was an article about Destiny discs, formerly known
Mm.
as dynamic discs, and or dynamic disc. But there, I couldn't find anything more than that, and other than that, it said that Dynamic Disc changed its name to Destiny Disc, and
Oh.
that, Dynamic Disc and Destiny Disc were, I believe, late 70s, early 1980s, disc company, mostly known for the Super Puppy. And I didn't have any, ultimately the business had ceased and stopped. And I think it was about 6 to 9 months later, Dave McCormick at Gateway reached out to me and said, "Hey, asked me a couple questions and kind of opened my eyes to there being maybe some potential, I don't know, conflict maybe is the
Mm.
maybe the wrong word, but we'll use it here
Yeah.
today." And here we are today, 18 years later, we're dynamic discs.
There you go. Yeah, Dave's a character. I met him last year. I can imagine how that conversation went.
If you
Um,
if you can have a conversation with Dave McCormick in under 1 hour, you're doing pretty good.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. He's a talker. So you started out obviously as a successful eBay store. You kind of had that rolling, and then you eventually, made a jump to a dedicated website. Was that kind of a nerve-wracking process, moving away from the platform you'd been successful on and jumping somewhere to where you now have to transfer a fan base and a customer base over?
Yeah, that ultimately eBay fees I think started out at like, I want to say 5 or 6% when I first started selling on eBay, and then I think they jumped up to 8 to 10%, and then ultimately I think when we really started to vacate eBay, I think they were up to 12% at
Mm.
that time, and we realized there were so many customers that were reaching out directly, wanting to email to put their orders in, wanting to make a phone call to put orders in, that ultimately recognized that, yeah, that's clearly the next step is to have an actual .com website. And I was very fortunate in the timing of things. One of my best friends growing up, Adam Searle, he was at a little bit of a, was essentially at the downturn of the economy in 2008 when the recession hit, and he was kind of out of work in most regards and was willing to come in and help out. And he said, "Hey, I think I can help evolve Dynamic Discs eBay operation into an actual .com operation." And he slept on the couch and had his own bedroom and worked on the business all the time with me. And ultimately, we definitely grew it a lot over the coming years. And he is certainly was a key part to helping us evolve it to a dynamicdisc.com.
Yeah, awesome. Certainly, yeah, certainly a huge jump moving to that. Now, I remember first seeing the dynamic logo, like you kind of mentioned earlier, on the backs of some of the bigger players. Paul Macbeth, I believe he was wearing it when he won 2012 Worlds. Nicola Castro was another player who was wearing it back then. How big was player ambassadorship back then to just get the dynamic name out there?
Oh, it was huge. It was absolutely huge. And it was, when I look back at those days and to realize just the player support that I had and Dynamic Disc had to um, just ultimately, a lot of the players just wanted to wear Dynamic Discs. And I think just support me and support everybody that was involved and associated with it. And I think that a lot of the players just really recognize that, hey, we're trying to push the envelope a little bit. We're trying to step the game up a little bit more professionally. We're trying to grow disc golf. We're motivated. We're passionate. We're quality human beings. And I remember all those friendships and all those relationships and those sponsorships, and it certainly evolved over the years. And every year it was always just a little bit more, a little bit more. I'll be real honest. I couldn't even do a whole lot compared to like what disc manufacturers at the time were doing. But that being said, this was we'll even say pre-Prodigy era, before players were really like getting a paycheck. And to think that when Prodigy launched, January 2013, that that $1,000 a month compensation sponsorship package was a real big deal. And when you look at where things are at today, it certainly has changed a tremendous amount. Not like funny story, Paul Ulibarri, all he wanted was hats.
Yeah.
And I see him in his car. I'm like, he's got like 50 hats in the back window, and he's like, I need some more hats. I'm like, man, you got them all in the back of here. But no, it was really neat to look back on those days and know what the player support was there, and that they we had a great team, a great crew. And it's really also interesting to know that a lot of those players are still the top players of today's time.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, there's no doubt that having that influence is essential, especially early on. Now, in 2012, you made a big jump and decided to start your own disc line, partnering with Latitude 64. Was that something that was always in the plans for Dynamic, or something that sprung up later on that you decided on?
Well, as we kept growing and having strong relationships with, ultimately, Discraft was who I and Dynamic had the strongest relationship with, leading up to the days of us turning into a disc manufacturer. That wasn't necessarily always the plan. We were doing some exclusive runs with Discraft and seeing some good success there. And as some things kind of started to change there, and I just realized that, hey, there's only so much that we can do as a disc retail brand, as a retailer, and knew that the next step for us was to partner up with a disc manufacturer. And ultimately those conversations took place at the 2012 Professional and Amateur World Championship out in Charlotte, North Carolina. The ownership of Latitude 64, they were there. We played disc golf. We talked about how we were going to conquer the world, and we certainly aren't conquering the world, but we had some discussions about Latitude producing discs for Dynamic Discs, and it certainly was intriguing at the time. And more than 10 years later, here we are with a full line of discs, and now complete alignment with the merger acquisition that I'm sure going to talk about here shortly.
Yeah, certainly. So one thing that I've always wondered about is, I think, a lot of disc companies choose names, like themes for their names of their discs. And some companies kind of put themselves in a corner a little bit with that. Prodigy, for example, there's now H1V2, like they've kind of got stuck there. Some companies just kind of leave it open-ended. I think that Dynamic has one of the best ones because there's a clear theme, but it's open enough. How did you guys, I don't even know, first of all, what would you even call the theme? And then how did you decide on it?
Yeah. So, it's a judicial, judicial theme in most regards. I guess I should probably, come up with a official terminology for that. But, we knew we were going to come out with a distance driver, a fairway driver, a mid-range, and a putter to start, and hopefully it would expand from there if we were having success. And as we were going through, some of my team and we were going through different paths of different naming themes that we could go down. And I wish I had that thread still to this day, but I don't. But one of those paths had this judicial theme, and on that list there was judge, Trespass, Fugitive, Escape, and the names could keep going. Those were the first four molds that we came out with. But actually making that decision, it's kind of an interesting point in time. One of my good friends at the time and a big supporter of disc golf and of the events that we were hosting, the Glass Blown Open at the time, he actually started up a winery in Kansas, and I ended up getting a newsletter from him about one of his new wines that was coming out, and it was called the Trespass. And it had I think it had a gun on it at the time, and I just thought that was a cool name, and that was one of the names in that thread. And that was when it clicked of, you know what, this is a cool theme that I think at that time we had at least 12 names that we felt like we could go with. And so we moved forward with those four names, and here we are today, and still falling in line with the theme that we've had in place.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's a great theme. I think it allows for names that clearly are in theme, but they sound like almost one-off discs just because there's just a lot of cool names that go along with the theme, having things like The Verdict, it's just got good names. Now, one disc in particular I have to ask about. My favorite disc in the Dynamic lineup is a disc that isn't even in full production anymore, and that's the Slammer, the original Slammer. So my question is, when is the Slammer ever coming back? And if not, I might need to buy the remaining ones at the factory.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you. Maybe you need to talk to Ricky. His is the Saki Slammer,
Right.
but I could see there being a limited run coming out in the near future, and you're not the only one that's been asking for that. So we'll see
Okay.
where that goes. And just something that popped into my mind. One of the names that I had the biggest struggles with. It's one of our more popular discs, or our most popular disc today. Can you take a guess on what that one is?
One of your most popular today, the Felon.
Yes. So I was really struggling with that name for the disc. I was
Okay.
like, why would we want to, you know,
It's true. I get it. Yeah.
and anyway, there was enough positive support for it amongst the crew at Dynamic Disc at the time that said, okay, you know what, this will be okay. And I guess it's okay today. I know there's some individuals out there that don't love the naming theme, and we're not going to be able to please everybody, but
Right.
yep.
Yeah, it is what it is. I think there's still quite a few names out there. I mean, we don't have a jury yet. I don't there's no dynamic jury.
You want me to tell you why?
Why is that?
I'll let you. You want to take a guess?
I mean, I would have to guess, is there a legal reason for that?
No, we just think
Just
that four letters on a disc, the actual look of the disc logo, JURY. It's just so small.
Oh.
It just looks kind
Yeah.
of, when you look at all of our stamps, basically 8 letters up to this point has been our maximum. Um,
Okay.
and four, we just feel like that just looks kind of
Interesting.
weird.
Interesting. That makes sense, I guess,
But
having like a consistent brand. I mean, when I think about it, yeah.
it
Huh.
doesn't mean
Okay.
we won't ever come out with it. But it's been pushed
Okay.
down the list every time because it's like, oh, there's a
Oh, is
better
there
one.
so is there like a running list of theme names? Okay. Wow. Interesting.
There,
Are you able to share any that might end up being a disc someday? Ones that you like personally?
I haven't looked at that list in a little while. And moving forward, um, we've made the decision that we are coming out with our legacy, what we're considering to be our legacy molds in the Supreme series, and we
Yeah.
are utilizing those legacy names. So we've got the Supreme Judge, the Supreme Trespass, the Supreme Escape, Supreme Fugitive, and more of those will continue to come out. And it's important for people to know that these new discs in the Supreme series are slightly different, or they're very different in the sense of the Supreme Fugitive is actually substantially different than what the original Fugitive that came out in
Mm.
2012 that is no longer in production. But Yeah, so I don't think we'll have any new names in the lineup except for the stuff that we're developing under the Saki Bomb lineup.
Yeah. Okay. I'm hoping. Do you think there'll be a Supreme Raider someday? Because I would love that.
Of course, there's going to be a Supreme Raider.
Okay. Whew. Thank goodness, because that would be my number two disc out of that lineup, and that one is still in production. So I'm looking forward to that. The Supreme Plastic is great. All right, so I wanna move on to the acquisition. Obviously, a lot of people are here to hear about that. It was a pretty big deal when that broke. You know, a very very big news drop. A lot of just interesting things going on. Anytime you hear venture capitalists in disc golf, people's ears really perk up. So, you know, if you're listening to this and you're not familiar with the deal, Dynamic Disc was acquired along with Westside by House of Discs, joining Latitude 64, kind of uniting the trilogy. There's also Hand-Eye Supply, Castaplast, and then spin-off games are involved in that as well. So what was this deal? How long has this been in the works? Was this something that's been 5 years in the making or something that was more recent?
Definitely something more recent. It's been a year in discussions under my radar. If
Okay.
it was, this was a dream of Latitude 64's for quite some time, so that we could really just be in complete alignment together, where
Yeah.
Dynamic, Latitude, and Westside are all really owned by one company that we all equally own. But through the course of venture capitalists getting interested in disc golf, some additional conversations, have been happening, and Latitude 64 was the first to move forward with wanting to, get support from venture capitalists and be, viewed in a little bit of a different light and operate in a little bit different fashion. And I, I, Latitude, they informed me about what was going on and made sure that I was aware. They didn't know necessarily where things were going to go, and as I guess you could say, momentum picked up for the deal. They encouraged me to, be open and listen to, what the opportunity could be. And here, a year later, it is official that, yeah, Dynamic Discs and Dynamic Distribution, the companies that I solely owned, have been purchased by the venture capitalists, with me having a reinvestment into the top company, House of Discs.
Yeah. Wow. And so, I mean, venture capitalists, it's an exciting thing from the sport. What I was kind of wondering and you've probably heard from them a little bit on this, but when you think about venture capitalists being interested in disc golf, do you think it's signifying that disc golf is a sure thing, like they are just confident that there's continued growth, or are they just seeing the potential upside and more so just kind of throwing it out there as a chance kind of investment? What do you feel like that signifies?
I think it's well, they spent plenty of money on market research, working with the top research firm in the world, as far as I know, to actually take a good look at the market, see where things are going. There clearly was a explosion during the pandemic
Yeah.
that was positive for disc golf. That even though things have somewhat come back to a little bit more of the normal that we disc golf has only grown over the years, and we know that's only going to happen, and that is one of the top priorities for House of Discs, is to grow disc golf even more, throughout even more countries. And yeah, there's clearly they're motivated by making a return on their investments to their investors. But one of the exciting things to me about that is that in order to actually grow and hit some of those growth goals and financial goals that they want to hit, we really have to be motivated to grow disc golf and raise it to a level that it's not at necessarily today. And I would argue that where we're at today is a really exciting time. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they've got to help with their resources, with their professionalism, with their connections. And it's been really refreshing to have a new set of eyes on some things. And I don't a lot of these things haven't even, we're just working on getting the group formed and getting that formalized and finalized. And think there will be, or I know there will be some, positive things that happen on the horizon.
Yeah, certainly. And, with this investment, obviously from the outside looking in, we see this consolidation of big brands. There's been a lot of talk about that. Um, with this investment, was it purely consolidation for the sake of a unified force, or are there some initiatives being brought to the table that are really going to change disc golf, as we know it right now? Is that kind of stuff being talked about? What are we going to do to change the sport and grow it, or is it kind of let's just follow the stream the way it's moving right now?
Oh, there definitely is going to be initiatives to grow the sport. I mean, yeah, while disc golf is on a good path, having some, new professional experience in different, realms that they've been in is certainly going to add to, the path that disc golf is already on. And I'm excited to work with these venture capitalists and utilize their resources to the best of our abilities, and see how all of disc golf, everybody that's involved with disc golf right now can, only grow disc golf even more. And I certainly look forward to there being, every year we take another step up on the professional level, on the professional scene, and it's really exciting to see where things are at there. But that's one of the things that I feel like there's that's only going to keep going in the direction that it's going, and more $1 million contracts for professional athletes, which I believe definitely helps more people want to be interested in becoming a professional disc golfer, and you get a lot of support all the way around for families wanting to support their kids as they start their disc golf journey. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered that question, but
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good things to come.
Yeah, certainly. It's very exciting times. With the consolidation that has happened kind of within Trilogy, and seeing the benefits of being a united front, do you think that consolidation is going to be a continued theme in disc golf as more money and investors enter and look to kind of pair organizations that right now complement each other? Do you feel like that's going to be a theme in the coming years?
Yeah, I do. There's a lot of, economies of scale that make sense with, right now in our current, before the merger, you could order through dynamic distribution, you could order dynamic discs, Latitude 64, West Side discs, Hand Eye Supply, and maybe a few other, well, you could order some Huck Lab products as well. Not, and that ability to just order through one website, through one order form, to get one shipment, to get one invoice, to make one payment, to have one email, to have one, point of contact at that location. I think that's a tremendous benefit for retailers as they struggle to keep up with the amount of orders, amount of companies they got to keep up with. So as more companies get added to our distribution channel, I absolutely think that's going to be an important aspect of retailers being able to really maximize on their business as well. And so, yeah, I would expect that there will be more consolidation in the industry, because a distribution center I mean, you can have a lot of shared resources, and really maximize people's time by having more things under one roof and one organization.
Certainly, certainly. Yeah, I think that it's certainly coming as things move on, especially not even just with the manufacturers, but with media and all the different spaces in disc golf. I feel like that's going to be a theme to come. Now, as far as your role with Dynamic, you're kind of taking a little bit of a step back from your current role, and you kind of have been, you said, over the past few years. You actually said in the Ulti-World article, you said, I almost feel like the business has outgrown my professional direction. What did you mean by that, and what are things going to look like for you moving forward?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it necessarily outgrew my professional direction, but it just, I felt so connected and so close to everybody for so many years. And then as so much stuff started happening, it's different as a,
Hmm.
as a, s- I mean, I'm just the entrepreneurial path along the way. And I really value knowing everybody's name. I really value getting to know what's going on the personal front. It's hard, as you keep growing, you can't keep up with all of that. And then as maybe some business challenges get you sidetracked. It's hard to do that. And so I'm 2.5 years old, 2.5 years into fatherhood. Sometimes I feel like I'm 2.5 years old,
Yeah.
gonna turn 40 this summer, and ultimately, I'm excited to make sure that I've got a really healthy work-life balance where I can, be committed to the mission and the growth at House of Discs, which is going to encompass, all the brands inside of the company, but then also make sure that on the home front that I'm able to, do what I need to do to make sure that we're happy and we're healthy and we're enjoying what we're doing. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, that I think that's great. I think that's, you were able to build something, so big, and it's awesome to have seen how it's thriving. And I totally get like the idea of, wanting to have those close personal relationships and watching your business grow from like a tight knit group of friends to like a big family to a corporation where it is how it happens, that's something that's crazy. And it's good. It's bittersweet almost to see that kind of happen. But, what is, the last thing I want to ask is, obviously the acquisition's complete now, things are kind of being put in place. What is just your overall vision for House of Discs and Dynamic moving forward as a board member? Like, what do you really want to see happen within those companies?
Well, growth for disc golf, as we've talked about, is super important. And in the United States, there's a lot of disc golf happening. There's a lot of disc golf happening in Europe and in Canada, but there's a lot more areas where we need to grow disc golf on a worldwide scale. I would certainly love to see disc golf become an Olympic sport in the near future. We certainly need to install a lot more disc golf courses all over the world. And I think that it's really important for people to know that it's not about growing 18-hole championship level disc golf courses, which is what a lot of people think that we need more of. It's really important to grow 9-hole disc golf courses that are beginner friendly, that let all walks of life get out onto that course, experience that course, and get birdies and get pars and not lose discs. Because if you walk up to the Emporia Country Club as your first disc golf course to play, you might not ever come back. And if that's the only course that you have in your town, thankfully in Emporia we have about 10 courses within a couple miles that won't be the first course that you play. But that's I think an important part for disc golf to continue to grow. And ultimately being a part of the group, it's one of the things I'm looking forward to is I've obviously worn a Dynamic Discs hat and a Dynamic Disc shirt. A lot of times I have the Latitude 64 logo on my sleeve, but and I've been in every regard, or almost every regard, the sole decision maker. I certainly gathered a lot of feedback from a lot of different people to make those decisions. And as with the Felon, every decision didn't necessarily go to what I necessarily believed. But in this new venture, I am excited about really looking at disc golf as a whole and looking at every brand as a whole, and not just being as concerned about only like Dynamic Discs, and seeing where, what path maybe a different brand inside the group needs to go, and what other things can we do. If we make some big investments into course growth, course installation, getting new communities involved, is that going to pay off in the short run? And I certainly think that there's a lot to be said about that. So it's going to be a little bit different, but I'm definitely excited about the path forward, and I think this is going to create additional opportunity in disc golf, and I think it's going to create professional growth inside the Dynamic Disc organization that is really the House of Discs organization now today.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think It's awesome to see such, influential big companies getting behind the growth of the sport ultimately and pushing that forward. I think you're absolutely right about just keeping the sport accessible and continuing to grow that side of things, because that's how we all got here to begin with, really, because the sport was accessible. So I think keeping the eye on that mission and that idea is huge. Certainly really exciting to see everything going on with dynamic discs and watching it now a part of the House of Discs and just seeing all that grow is going to be really awesome. But thanks so much, Jeremy, for coming on and talking about all that. I think you have an awesome vision for the sport. I'm super excited for you and what you've been able to do with the company and your role moving forward.
Hey, Trevor, I really appreciate it. Keep up the good work over there, and I look forward to seeing what you guys keep coming out with.
All right, thanks once again to Jeremy for joining the show today. Really cool hearing about the roots of dynamic disc. Such a cool company in the sport of disc golf, and awesome to see how just very small beginnings, just starting as an eBay store with the growth of this sport that we're in, what that was able to turn into. And it's certainly an interesting future looking forward, seeing what's going to happen with the venture capitalist money in the sport and what might go on moving forward. So definitely going to be something to keep an eye on. But other than that, we'll see you next week with another episode. See you then.